Listen to this. Imagine a single headline that could change how nations think about who feeds the world. Imagine the leader of a small Sahel nation announcing a massive agricultural deal with a rising Asian economic power. Now imagine questions exploding across trading floors, shipping corridors, farm towns, and capital cities. That is the story we are unpacking today. Reports that Ibrahim Traore has struck a $14 billion grain arrangement with India, a move that many say shocks the world. This video will walk you through every angle: who Traore is and why he would sign a deal like this, what the claim actually says, what the economics and logistics would have to look like, how plausible the figures are given production and transport realities, who stands to win and who stands to lose, and what the global fallout might be if the claim is true. We will end with the questions you should be asking and what to watch for next. First, the claim. Several widely circulated online videos and social posts assert that Burkina Faso's leader has sealed a deal worth $14 billion to supply grain to India. The descriptions vary. Some versions say the agreement covers a multi-year supply of rice and coarse grains. Others frame the pact as a barter-style investment, with infrastructure and financing included. The headlines are bold. But before anyone treats those headlines as settled fact, we must examine the evidence and the context. Claims shared on social platforms matter because they shape public perception, but they are not the same as corroborated reporting from established news agencies and trade sources. Treating a dramatic claim as fact without reliable confirmation would be a mistake, and that is the first point we must be clear about. Now let us step back and meet the central figure. Ibrahim Traore is the military officer who leads Burkina Faso's transitional government. His rise, his regional posture, and his political approach have put him on the map. He is a public figure whose moves receive strong attention at home and abroad. Anything he does that touches major trade flows will attract interest. That is why even an unverified rumor about an enormous grain deal becomes a lightning rod. It is also why we must be careful. Political leaders can be the subject of misinformation, exaggeration, and misattribution. So, as we continue, remember that the claim we examine today appears widely online, but mainstream verification is limited. Next, the agricultural reality. Burkina Faso is a predominantly agricultural country. Farming feeds millions and employs a large share of the population. Recent official data and international agricultural monitoring indicate that total cereal output for a recent harvest year is in the single-digit millions of tons. That is important. A $14 billion supply agreement with a major importer would imply very large quantities and long-term commitments. If the deal is for export volumes measured in the tens of millions of tons, that would be a number on a different scale from Burkina Faso's current production capacity. That gap matters because it affects feasibility, food security, and logistics. Would a country with strong domestic food needs and limited surplus be willing or able to ship the kind of volumes needed to justify the headline figure? Any credible assessment must start with those production numbers and the country's own food security needs. Logistics is the next hard barrier to examine. Burkina Faso is landlocked. Exporting mass quantities of grain to a distant buyer in South Asia means moving crops by road, rail, and sea. That requires reliable corridors to coastal ports, coordinated customs and transit arrangements, port capacity, storage, shipping charters, and insurance. The principal corridors for goods leaving Burkina Faso lead to ports on the Atlantic coast, including those in neighboring countries. Even if a government negotiates favorable terms, the actual movement of millions of tons involves physical infrastructure that is costly, time-consuming, and vulnerable to disruption. When a headline announces a mega deal, one of the first questions traders and logistics firms ask is how the cargo will travel from field to ship. In the absence of detailed logistics plans and port commitments, a monetary headline looks incomplete. Financing and currency arrangements are also central. A deal quoted in the order of billions of dollars implies major financing commitments, guarantees, or trade credit lines. Financing could come from buyer credit, export credit agencies, multilateral banks, or private banks. The buyer could pay in local or foreign currency or structure the agreement as an investment in local processing and storage in exchange for preferential offtake. Each model has different implications for sovereignty, risk, and how the transaction is recorded in official accounts. Public statements that omit financing details leave large gaps in the story. Responsible reporting should identify who is financing the purchase, what collateral is offered, and whether the deal is between governments, between state entities, or between private companies. Now let us consider India's perspective. India is one of the world's largest agricultural producers. It has enormous domestic stocks for staple grains and, in recent years, has both exported and maintained large strategic reserves. India's domestic politics around agriculture are highly sensitive. Farm prices and procurement policies are closely watched by domestic constituencies. For India to commit to a large-scale long-term purchase from an external supplier, it would need to balance domestic availability, price, and political optics. That is not to say India cannot enter into significant import or investment arrangements. Countries and companies constantly seek diversified supply lines. But any credible account of a multi-billion-dollar deal should demonstrate demand logic from the Indian side and show how the arrangement fits into India's domestic procurement, export, and strategic reserve policies. Geopolitics sits behind every big trade story. Africa and India have been strengthening ties. South-South cooperation, investment agreements, and infrastructure partnerships are part of a longer trend of economic and political engagement across continents. For a West African leader to sign a major deal with India could point to a new chapter in those ties. But geopolitics also introduces competing narratives. Are such deals a genuine win-win, or could they shift influence in ways that worry other partners or donors? Would a large export agreement undermine local food security, or would it bring investment into processing, storage, and market access that lifts incomes? Those questions require careful analysis of deal terms and safeguards. Let us examine plausibility with an example. If a headline says a country will supply a large fraction of another country's consumption needs for staple grains over a period of years, sound analysts will ask, what are the volumes, what is the timeline, how will production scale up, and who is financing the expansion? Can farming productivity increase quickly enough? What about storage and post-harvest losses? Without such numbers, an eye-catching dollar figure is hard to verify on the ground. It is perfectly possible that the reported monetary value includes investments in infrastructure, processing plants, and long-term credit lines rather than only pure commodity purchases. That nuance matters. Headlines that reduce a complex package to a single number invite misunderstanding but also attract clicks. We should also ask, who benefits and who is at risk? On paper, beneficiaries could include local farmers who gain off-takers and investment, regional logistics players who handle transit, and political leaders who tout economic wins. Risks include diversion of food meant for local markets upward into exports, inflationary effects on domestic staple prices, and over-reliance on a single large buyer. If the deal includes long-term loan obligations, future budgets might face pressure. That is why any credible agreement of such magnitude must include transparent safeguards for domestic food security and independent monitoring. Now to the marketplace reaction. A real deal of serious scale would likely move commodity markets, alter trade flows, and trigger responses from other suppliers who might see their market share threatened or their prices pressured. It would also attract scrutiny from international institutions and regional neighbors. Yet market moves only confirm a deal when trading desks and official sources corroborate volumes and delivery schedules. Rumors alone do not create sustained market shifts. Responsible reporting distinguishes between market rumor, confirmed orders, and formal government announcements. So what does the available reporting say? In my research I found that dramatic headlines claiming a $14 billion grain arrangement circulate widely on video platforms and social posts. Those videos present the claim forcefully, but at the time of this script the story is not widely corroborated in major international wire services or trade publications that typically cover large commodity deals. That discrepancy between viral video claims and mainstream confirmation is the crux of the matter. Viral coverage can be an early flag, but it also has a history of amplifying unverified or exaggerated claims. For this reason, a careful narrator will present the viral claim, then sift what can be verified, and finally ask the audience to watch for primary documentation such as official statements, signed agreements, and confirmations from trade and port authorities. What should viewers watch for to separate rumor from reality? First, an official text of the agreement or a joint press release from the governments or companies involved. Second, announcements from trade ministries or export credit agencies detailing financing lines. Third, confirmations from port authorities or shipping consortia about booking and scheduling. Fourth, independent reporting from recognized newswires and trade analysts who can verify volumes. Fifth, statements from farmer groups or domestic market regulators in the countries concerned. When a single one of these elements is present, the reporting begins to move from rumor toward confirmation. When many are present, the story is credible. Let us imagine the deal is true in its broad outlines. What would be the short-run and long-run consequences? In the short run, an injection of foreign currency and investment could fund storage, milling, and transport infrastructure. That would create jobs and could improve market access for farmers who sell through formal channels. In the longer term, structural change could occur, investment in value chains, shifts in cropping patterns, and new trade corridors. But these benefits are not automatic. They depend on contract terms, transparency, and whether safeguards protect local food availability. History shows that large export projects can bring both uplift and dislocation. The political leadership in Burkina Faso would need to manage competing priorities: revenue from exports and the nutritional security of its people. What if the deal is not true, or is substantially exaggerated? The damage is different but real. False headlines can stoke false hopes or create panic. They can weaken trust in public information and create diplomatic confusion. Social channels can amplify partial truths until they appear like verified outcomes. That does not mean every viral claim is malicious. Some are based on misreading preliminary discussions, mistaking private memorandums for signed agreements, or conflating separate deals into one headline. Journalists, analysts, and audiences all bear responsibility to spot the difference. At this moment, the responsible narrator does two things. First, present the viral claim clearly and say where it came from. Second, present the verification status and the evidence for and against. That approach is fair, rigorous, and credible. It respects the audience and protects the creator from repeating unverified claims as fact. It also invites viewers into the investigative process rather than forcing them to accept a headline. So here are the exact questions I want you to think about and answer in the comments below. Do you think a deal of this kind and size is plausible between a Sahel state and India, given production and logistics realities? If this deal is true, is it a model for South-South cooperation or an unsustainable gamble? Who should be held accountable to ensure the domestic population is protected if large exports begin, the buyer, the seller, or international institutions? What evidence would make you convinced this deal is real, and what red flags would make you skeptical? Share your view and explain the evidence you would like to see. Now for the ending that matters to the channel. If this analysis gave you value, subscribe to AfriPol Lens so you do not miss future deep dives on major Africa trade stories. Like the video so the algorithm sees that careful reporting matters, and leave a comment with the question you found most interesting. Tell us where you want the next deep dive to go. If you are a specialist, an economist, port official, or trade advisor, and you see documents or reporting I missed, please share sources in the comments or reach out so we can update the record. We want to be accurate, and we want our audience to have the best available information. A final practical note for viewers at home. Viral headlines can travel faster than verification. Use this video as a guide on how to think about big trade claims. Look for official agreement texts, confirmations from trade and shipping authorities, and reporting by established news services. If you are sharing this story, include a note that it was widely reported online but lacked immediate confirmation from major global trade outlets at the time of this video.